Welcome. You're listening to episode 13 of the Christian Heart Podcast, a non-denominational podcast sharing wonderful ways that everyday people show their love for Jesus. Some of our stories are about church-based ministries. Others, in fact, the vast majority, are from individuals who had an idea of how to help other people and just acted on it. The ministries vary widely, from person to person and from town to town across the country, but all have in common the connection between someone's heart and the love of Jesus that they wanted to share. These are stories from people in ordinary walks of life who are enjoying extraordinary blessings through Christian service and ministry. And they're making a difference, an eternal difference, in the lives of others. So let's begin. Our first story begins years ago with a homeless teenager who was a single mom at age 17. But she became a successful real estate broker who just happened to misplace a large check. When it was returned by a homeless man, it dramatically changed both of their lives. Here is Totally Changing Their Lives.
As a teenager, I was in and out of homeless shelters. By the time I was 17, I was a single mom. But in looking back, I think God was preparing me to do some wonderful things to glorify Him. God blessed me with initiative, and eventually I became a real estate broker. I started selling commercial properties. I worked long hours and built my business. It started to take off. One day I closed a sale, took my $10,000 check, and hurried to my next appointment. But somehow I dropped the check in the street. Someone found it and called me. I was touched that he was returning it and not asking for anything. I arranged to meet him, and to my surprise, he was a guy who was down on his luck and had been homeless for a year. But he had the integrity to return my check. I felt God's nudge to help this man. I sensed God put this man in my life at that time to do something big. Instead of temporarily solving his problem with a check as a reward, I wanted to change his situation and maybe change it for some others. He was a smart guy, and I set him up in an apartment and sent him to school to be a real estate agent. The more I got to know him, the more impressed I became. He had a unique perspective on how to help the homeless, so we started working on a plan to build a transitional home for homeless teens and young adults, which will include services that many shelters don't have, such as medical services on site. This home will provide substance abuse classes, employment opportunities, and church services. Our real estate company purchased a 2-family home with a goal of assisting some 15 individuals initially. We want to start breaking the poverty curse. I have never been more excited for anything in my life. Never underestimate the power of God. He knows what to do and when to do it.
It's probably a fairly common thing to hear when you're talking with someone who has started a ministry. The conversation might go something like this. I met God during a long walk on the beach. Up next in the Christian Heart Podcast, a diagnosis that wasn't encouraging. A very different long walk on the beach, but one that came with a clear message from God about a ministry opportunity and where to start it. Here's a story about starting a ministry in a bar.
I was a picture of good health, all the way up until May of 2001. I was vacationing at the beach when I got a call from my doctor. He informed me that I had non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Obviously, this news brought me to a very scary and broken place. I was brought to my knees, wondering how this could be. I took a long walk alone on the beach, crying out to God. And while on that walk, I met God like I never had before. In my fear and through my cries, I got a message that this was not the end. He told me I would be all right, but He wanted me to use this to glorify Him in a very specific way. One that was clearly spelled out to me. He wanted me to start a ministry called Operation Jesus. Being in the police force, I had no ministry experience or any idea on how to get this off the ground. But His message had been so strong that I was only supposed to be His vessel. I started by inviting my fellow officers and some of the city employees to a midweek gathering where we would have a guest speaker share his or her testimony. We'd also sing some songs of praise and have some time for prayer. They started inviting their friends, and the ministry grew. We started in an extra room provided by a church, but God's message clearly told me that I was to move this to a bar. Yes, a bar of all places. And this sure took some of my fellow officers by surprise. But thankfully, we found a tavern where the owner was open to the idea. We would move chairs and tables around and begin the service by praying for all the people who would be there that night, praying they would not give in to temptation. It was an amazing experience, one that continued for 16 years. My faith was greatly strengthened through, of all things, my cancer. God taught me that you could do incredible things if you lean on Him and trust Him. But it all starts with being open to listening, just listening to His quiet voice.
So what's a common thing to do for two new parents with a newborn baby at home? Why, take them a meal, of course. And that's exactly how this next ministry started. God planted an idea with this lady to help overwhelmed parents. How did she respond? With some delicious casseroles, of course. Here's the story we call Taking Meals to New Parents.
As a mother of two, I know how important meals are for parents of newborns. During those first 6 months of being a new parent, life is crazy, and being able to provide homemade food or takeout to families in this brand new paradigm is something I love doing. Bringing food to families isn't always convenient, especially with 2 toddlers in tow, but it's something Jesus has put on my heart to do. Also, I love cooking and being able to bring them something yummy and comforting. It is so fun. Sometimes when I drop off the food, I even get the chance to share a few encouraging words. It's such a tangible way to serve.
Finally, on this 13th episode of The Christian Heart, here's a story from Spartanburg, South Carolina, about a couple who decided to make a difference in the lives of foster parents in that area. It started as an outreach to simply offer childcare to foster couples so they could attend weekly meetings. But oh boy, did that idea ever grow. Now there's a full-blown ministry with childcare, a clothes closet, and a full array of services that provide foster families with the help they need.
When we became foster parents 16 years ago, we had little to no support. But we knew God had called us to foster. We live in Spartanburg County, which currently has more kids in foster care than any other county in South Carolina. When we began, we were disheartened by the lack of attention given to foster care and the lack of support for foster care parents. Recognizing a need, we began P.S. I Love You Ministries. It started as a church ministry where we provided childcare for monthly foster care meetings. In addition, we wanted to be a resource for other families serving as foster parents, drawing upon our knowledge and experience to answer their questions. We didn't want foster families to feel alone. We also began making care bags for children entering the foster care system. As foster parents, we saw firsthand how many children enter foster care with few, if any, belongings of their own. We decided to give the children a pillow with their name embroidered on it, so they would have something that was theirs to keep. We also provided them with basic hygiene items, a Bible, and a toy or a blanket. In 2012, we gained nonprofit status, allowing us to partner with even more people in our community. Since then, we have had numerous groups donate items for care bags. People began to see the need that extend beyond the care bags and started donating clothing. In October 2016, we officially opened our resource center that houses the P.S. I Love You clothing closet. The clothing is in great condition and has been donated to us so we can help new foster families get some of the essential clothing items the children will need. We know that not everyone is called to foster, but everyone can do something. Gaining nonprofit status and opening the clothing closet help raise awareness to the needs of the foster care system in our area. When people drop off clothing, they learn about what we do and why we do it. It's a great opportunity to share our faith with others.
That wraps up another bi-weekly episode of the Christian Heart Podcast. If you like our encouraging podcast, Please subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, or Stitcher, and never miss an episode. We hope you enjoy these brief but encouraging stories, all true, and all written by the people who are living them every day. You may have stories of your own that others would enjoy hearing, or you may want to recommend someone be profiled here. Either way, here's our encouragement to you. Check out our website at www.thechristianheart.com and click the button at the top of the page that says Suggest a Person. We'll do the rest. You can also read several hundred other stories on our website or our Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram platforms. We appreciate you being a part of our listener-supported ministry. Look for another episode coming in just a couple weeks. Thanks for joining us.